Cashiers of Reddit, what was the worst time you blew up on a customer? I work at Disney World. One time I had a particularly rude guest, and the end I told them to have a great day, not a magical day. Wow, that's pretty hardcore. Well, you just magically lost your job. I was working at a coffee shop in a busy downtown area. There was a businessman that was notorious for being abusive with our staff. One morning he came in and ordered a coffee and a cranberry scone. We happened to be out of cranberry scones that day, and when I informed him of this, he flew off the handle and started swearing at me. I looked him square in the eye and said, "You're a grown man throwing a temper tantrum over a cranberry scone. Sort your life out." I then calmly turned to the next customer. The next day he apologized and was never a problem again. Some people just need a reality check. I love your response. Perfect. At a pawn shop, the lady paid me with the $20 and I gave her change. She flipped up because she knew she'd given me a $100 bill. She screamed, cursed, and called me every name in the book. Just lost her mind. The whole time, she's saying she knew she paid with a $100 bill but she just put one in her wallet earlier. I asked her repeatedly to just check her wallet then, to see if the $100 bill was still there or not. She just kept yelling she didn't need to check, because she knew she'd given it to me. Eventually she checked and all the anger just blew out of her. She was mortified. The $100 bill was there. Every cashier's nightmare scenario. The best tip I ever learned was to place the customer's bill atop the drawer while making change, and only place inside when the transaction is complete. Not cashier, but now ex-bartender, and this was a while ago, so I may not have everything that's said 100% correct. Right after we closed one Friday or Saturday night, I was sent to sweep up a broken glass that happened to be next to a table where a couple of girls were still sat finishing their last drinks. The DJ had just stopped playing music. Bouncers were in the process of asking everyone to leave. A lot of the broken glass happened to be under where one of the girls was sitting. So I politely said, "Please, can I ask you to move so I can sweep up this broken glass?" She gave me a really dirty look down at her drink, threw her glass on the floor next to her, so I now had twice as much to sweep up, and said, "You can't make me move anywhere. Boy, get out. We are closed and I already asked you politely." My manager heard, came over and asked what happened. I told him, and he just went, "Okay, you're barred," to the girl. It was so satisfying when she tried arguing with him, and he got the bouncers to escort her from the building. As an ex-bartender, I would've done so much worse, honestly, after long ass hours, pressure and having to clean up right after. Just to have some idiot make it worse would drove me insane. When I worked at Subway in high school, there was this guy in his 30s that came in with his wife almost every day. He was a douche and talked to you like an idiot. Not because he was in a bad mood either, because he thought it was funny to be an ass to kids working fast food jobs. One day I had enough and took his sandwich I was in the middle of making and spiked it into the garbage can and told him to frick off. He told me I couldn't talk to customers that way, and I told him I just did, you mofo. He called the owner and dropped my name. We had name tags, and she told him that if I blew up on him like that it was probably deserved and asked him to not return. I for sure thought I was fired. Lucky for me, the owner knew exactly what customer she was talking to and knew me good enough to know it takes salad to get me irritated and that I wouldn't do something like that for no reason. "That's awesome," the owner responded. "More employers should stand up for their employees like that." This woman who used to come into the coffee shop I managed was the real world equivalent of Darla's Umbridge. She was smug, obnoxious, and delighted in being a giant pain in the ass. She came in daily and had a ridiculously complicated drink order which she was unnecessarily nitpicky about. She came in one day when our grinder was having issues, which I warned her about. I happened to be on register and not on bar, and so my employee, who was my best employee at the time, made the drink. She took it and left. The next day she came in, and before she even hit the register she announced very rudely in my general direction, "You're making my drink, right?" I switched places with the person on bar in order to make it. As her drink was so wildly complicated, it took several minutes to make, throughout which I was told how terrible her drink had been yesterday, how it had ruined her day, how she'd lost faith in the company, etc. I apologized profusely and offered to calm her drink. That was not good enough. She told me she wanted the person who had made her drink before fired. I lost my temper. I more or less told her that I was sorry that her drink was not up to par the day before, but that I had apologized, offered a free beverage, and had actually warned her we were having an equipment issue the day before, which was the likely culprit, and not my employee. She told me I must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed, and I said no. Actually, you are a giant pain in the ass, your order is obnoxious, and we bend over backwards to accommodate you daily. She had a whole list of things aside from the crazy drink. It had to be served with a certain number of napkins. Her sleeve had to be facing a specific way, etc. And if that's how you feel, please take your business elsewhere. Coffee Umbridge tut-tutted her way out of my shop in a huff, and I didn't even care if I got in trouble for telling her off. I didn't. This wasn't me, but I was involved. When I was in high school, I worked at a shoe store. The one with that freaking prize wheel from hell. We did this buy one get one half off sale all the time. The way it works is you buy a more expensive pair and you get the cheaper of the two half off. Otherwise we'd lose money. So this woman comes in and buys 2 pair of kid shoes. Looks at the receipt and thinks that $50 is too much for her smaller child. So she returns them. She then proceeds to flip out because the difference for the other pair came out of the refund. I called the manager and he came up and she says he's a foster kid. He's not worth a $50 pair of shoes. Stop trying to rob me and give me my freaking money. So manager refunded her the entire bill and took both pair of shoes and walked off. We all gave her the silent treatment until she left, angrily. I feel bad for both children and her husband who were just standing there quietly. And this is when you call CPS and notify them of that. Or at least threaten to right in front of her. I was a server years ago and this woman, usually a pretty nice lady, comes in and apparently we had messed up her salmon a few days prior. So the manager had given her a free meal card which is good for one single meal. Well, a few days later she comes in with at least 15 people about an hour before we closed, and they all order seafood and steak and wine and her whole party is awful to me and my friend who is another server. One guest even threw his plate on the ground, breaking it and throwing food all over because his steak was overcooked. After all of this, the other server went to take the woman her check, and it was a couple $100, and she whips out the free meal card. The server takes it to the register, comps one of the meals off, and comes back with the new total and the woman loses it. I have a free meal card. This was one meal for all of us. It should be free. And the server just stiffens up and politely explains that that isn't how it works, and stresses that she had to have known that she couldn't have brought 15 people in here and expected free meals for everyone. The woman stands up and pours her red wine all over my friend, and my friend just goes what the frick and runs to the back to get the manager. She kept her calm honestly, but the manager flipped and told her to get the hell out and never come back. That was a crazy night. I would have freaking choked that lady out if she poured wine on me. I carded a woman trying to buy cigarettes who got really annoying when I didn't just give it to her. It was in her car, so she left and came right back. When I held my hand out for it, she tried to fling it at my face and missed. It fell on the floor behind the counter and I refused to pick it up. I called for next customer and started ignoring her. When she asked for it back, I gave her permission to come around the counter to get it. It was petty, but in the moment I wasn't gonna budge. She called the cops and said I stole it. When they came, I explained what happened. He gave her a really annoyed look and she yells, "Make him give it to me." Then looks back to me. He literally ordered me to pick it up. I'd honestly rather lose my job, but I was afraid of what would happen if I refused an officer. So I picked it up and gave it to her. She got the satisfaction of winning and got to leave with a big smug look on her face. Afterwards the officer apologized and said he was basically afraid of upsetting her. I was dangerously close to calling him a pussy. You have a gun, dude. Just shoot her and sprinkle a little crack and move on. Had a customer come in to do a return on a toilet seat. Not to me, but the customer service person. She tells him store policy as we don't do returns on seats out of the plastic. He starts telling her he just took it out to check it and it's not the right shape. She repeats store policy and there's no manager here to override it. It's literally impossible for us to return it. He doesn't like this and starts raising his voice and trying to bully her. She's super shy and quiet, so she kinda just shut down. The other cashier says very loud it's dirty. He didn't just take it out. He's a liar. He became incredibly angry. I reached over, hit a light, and said, "You're on break. Go upstairs." She protested, but I repeated and she left. He said, "What did that say?" I replied, "Don't worry about it. I'll handle it later. We aren't doing your return." He starts to protest again, but I cut him off. "I don't care. I don't care what you did or what you have to say. We aren't doing your return today. You've got two options. Take your toilet seat home and come back tomorrow and talk to a manager, or take your seat and get out of here. Either way, you're leaving here with seat." He left. Managers became required to be there on weekends, and someone bought me some M&Ms. Nice ending to the story. You did a good job. The day I quit my job last year, I knew in the morning I was quitting that day, and in the morning one of the bitchiest customers came in complaining about a product not working. Yet again, this was just a regular occurrence that happened with this particular customer. After about half an hour, I just told her to go and herself, and I can be asked listening to her anymore. I then proceeded to call my boss and tell him I quit. Can't wait for that to happen to me. Honestly, the best feeling ever. I honestly don't remember this, but my coworkers do, and apparently was a customer yelled at me, "Go to hell." And I yelled back, "I'll see you there." My C's and I say this to each other a lot, for funsies, and it's the only reason I believe I may have said this to an in-red customer. But one I did remember was a customer brought up a sandwich that apparently looked awful to her. She held it out to me and said, "Would you eat this?" And without missing a beat I said, "Yes." That shocked her into silence for a good few seconds. I was being honest. The sandwich looked fine to me.